search for Nancy Guthrie. We do know 3 people were detained. Police activity could be seen 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, and local police and several unmarked vehicles, including forensics and SWAT teams, could be seen gathering.
Only minutes ago, new attention turned back to the FBI investigation into Nancy Guthrie, and the focus is once again on her home. What investigators found inside was not dramatic, but it was deeply unsettling. No broken doors, no signs of chaos, just quiet details that did not feel right.
84-year-old Nancy Guthrie first reported missing on February 1st, so we are now officially at the 2-week mark here.
Police have to indicate that they're looking for something specific within that house that would be related to the case that they're investigating.
Details that made the FBI return, look again, and then grow silent. When federal agents stop talking, it usually means something has been uncovered, something that changes the whole case. What exactly did the FBI find inside Nancy Guthrie's home that made everything shift? Join us to find out. She went to sleep safe, then vanished by morning. The tale of Nancy Guthrie starts in a manner that exudes peace, coziness, and normalcy, which is what makes it disconcerting. Initially, nothing about the evening she went missing appeared out of the ordinary. There were no red flags, no disorder, just a serene night like countless others before it. Nancy enjoyed the evening with her loved ones. The atmosphere was calm and harmonious. They had dinner as a family and engaged in playful activities. The sound of laughter echoed throughout the room in a warm and comforting manner. No one recalled any disagreements afterwards. Her voice did not betray any signs of sorrow or apprehension. The environment was free of any stress or conflict. It was the type of evening that leaves a lasting impression of tranquility, a memory that stays with you because everything went right. Nancy was brought home just before 10 p.m. that night, with the confirmation of this fact by law enforcement. The notable aspect is the withholding of information on the driver's identity. The absence of this disclosure is significant. In investigations of this nature, every aspect is scrutinized, and withholding a detail typically indicates its importance according to the investigators. Upon Nancy's return, everything appeared normal in her house. She refrained from seeking assistance from others, and there were no signs of commotion. The lack of any alarming sounds or disturbances did not cause concern among the neighbors. The evening passed peacefully, without any apparent issues. This is the impression left by the events of the night. By dawn, Nancy had disappeared. Investigators had hoped to uncover answers when they entered the house, but they were met with even more mysteries. The lack of forced entry, broken doors, or shattered windows perplexed them. The absence of any signs of struggle made the silence of the house seem eerie. In cases involving missing individuals, signs of damage and disorder typically offer clues, but there were none to be found in this instance. The lack of evidence only served to heighten rather than alleviate their concerns. When a person vanishes from their residence without any signs of disturbance, investigators are prompted to reassess their assumptions. It may indicate foresight. It may indicate a level of intimacy. It may indicate a situation where dread was not given the opportunity to manifest. Such silence frequently indicates a meticulously orchestrated or deeply meaningful event. Initially, the situation was considered a missing persons case, but that label was quickly dismissed. The FBI promptly entered the picture, indicating that there were underlying factors beyond just a routine local incident. When federal agencies get involved, it suggests there are potential issues regarding trends, communication, or conduct that demand a more thorough investigation. The residence was inspected by agents who gathered belongings and meticulously recorded each aspect. Following this, an unexpected event occurred. The home was cleared and subsequently revisited, a rare occurrence in investigations. Reopening a crime scene typically only occurs if new details alter the perspective of the case. The return to the residence indicated that there were inconsistencies during the initial investigation that needed to be addressed. The sequence of events posed a significant challenge in the investigation. Nancy didn't disappear gradually, but rather suddenly, within a short span of time. This limited time frame holds great significance. It suggests that whoever was responsible had precise timing, or that Nancy left willingly, without sensing any danger at that moment. Investigators are discreetly considering the option of a voluntary departure, altering the entire course of the investigation. The interpretation of evidence, suspects, narrowing, and prioritization of important questions are all affected by this. The absence of any signs of forced entry would be particularly unsettling if she did not leave voluntarily. Prior to the issuance of ransom notes and media attention, prior to the desperate appeals from family members, there was an event inside the house that transformed a typical evening into the commencement of a federal inquiry. Nancy is frequently associated with the tranquility of that particular evening. She cherished moments spent with her family and felt at ease as she retired for the night. She led a cautious life, steering clear of risky situations. Therefore, her sudden absence is perplexing, as it contradicts the peaceful life she had cultivated and the persona she had established. Her lack of presence created a silent void, echoing in the space. An empty chair, a morning devoid of her presence. The calmness of her house stood out as the most noticeable hint for investigators. Silence in such instances can be a powerful communicator. It indicates to investigators that there was no sense of urgency in the events that occurred. It suggests that trust may have been a contributing factor. It also hints that the truth lies within serenity, rather than chaos. This case started small, but then escalated. Why? Let's find out. When the FBI stepped in, once the FBI got involved, the trajectory of this case took a subtle yet impactful turn. Federal entities don't typically intervene in missing persons cases without cause, especially not so early on. Their involvement suggests that there is more to the situation than meets the eye, something irregular about the vanishing. With Nancy Guthrie's case, this change occurred swiftly, altering the perspective on every aspect moving forward. Initially, the situation appeared peaceful at face value. It started with a disappearance report and a tranquil residence. There were no indications of any violent behavior, no disturbances, and no one present to witness anything. However, tranquility doesn't always equate to safety. From the perspective of experienced investigators, a sense of calm can indicate a sense of manipulation. The intervention of the FBI was not due to the presence of clear answers, but rather because there were too many uncertainties in a very precise manner. Federal intervention can indicate the presence of organization in a case, instead of chaos or coincidence. When someone vanishes from their residence without evidence of forced entry or a fight, and in a brief time frame, investigators take notice. These circumstances do not appear accidental. They hint at precision, order, and purpose. The FBI is skilled at identifying these indicators promptly. Nancy's situation carried significant importance due to the time frame involved. She was seen to be safe at night, but by the next morning, she had disappeared suddenly. The quick disappearance, within a short period of time, sparked immediate worry. It implied that the person responsible either had knowledge of when to make their move, or that Nancy left willingly in a situation that didn't seem threatening at the time. Both scenarios are troubling and need to be approached with caution. The FBI's prompt response was also motivated by the need to address communication issues. Once ransom messages emerged and were shared with the media, it fell under federal jurisdiction. Any communication that extends across state boundaries, utilizes technology, or employs strategic messaging goes beyond local concerns. It escalates into a bigger issue that demands the resources and power of multiple agencies. The handling of information shifted following that incident. The frequency of updates decreased, and the level of detail provided was reduced. This lack of communication was intentional, not accidental. When investigators suspect an ongoing situation, they are cautious with what they release to the public. Revealing too much information can weaken their position and limit their options. In situations involving potential ransom or negotiations, maintaining silence is not a sign of indifference, but a way to safeguard interests. The remarkable thing was that the FBI didn't just offer help and then leave. They remained on the scene, collaborating with local police officers. They thoroughly and systematically searched Nancy's residence. They gathered objects and recorded details. They scrutinized what was there and, equally crucially, what was missing. Federal investigators do not seek drama when they enter a home after someone goes missing. Instead, they look for deviations from the usual. Each home reveals a narrative of everyday life, showing how the inhabitant lives and interacts with their environment. The key is to grasp this ordinary pattern before identifying anything out of place. Doors and windows are quickly inspected, and locks are checked. However, the true focus is on the overall atmosphere of the space. The positioning of lights, furniture, and personal items is carefully observed for any disturbances. These subtle details may not be obvious at first glance, but they are significant indicators to experienced individuals. Investigators often consider whether a person seems to have departed hastily or not at all as a crucial inquiry. The presence of shoes near the door, a phone plugged in for charging, and untouched medication may not be flashy hints, but they hold significant weight. These simple observations can provide insights into whether the individual had a premeditated plan to leave, was unexpectedly disrupted, or had no intention of going anywhere. Situations where there is no apparent conflict, worry tends to increase instead of decrease. Quietness might indicate comfort. It could imply that the individual who came into the house was not perceived as a danger. Alternatively, it could indicate that there was no conflict inside the house to start with. In any case, it indicates a lack of randomness and leans towards a relationship. Investigators are also searching for evidence of manipulation. A pristine room might raise as many red flags as a chaotic one. If everything appears perfectly in order, it could indicate an attempt to manipulate the situation. Manipulation creates its own distinctive imprint. Lack of presence plays a crucial role as well. Whether it be a lost key, a misplaced gadget, or a piece of clothing gone astray, the absence of even a single object can significantly alter the course of an investigation. A void signifies activity, purpose, and signifies that events unfolded beyond the confines of the residence. Investigators were perplexed in Nancy's household not by a single shocking revelation, but by the consistent pattern of things that defied explanation. Despite everything appearing typical, her disappearance remained a puzzling mystery. Such eerie stillness is cause for concern. The FBI adheres to stringent guidelines when handling a residence. Items are not taken out without careful consideration. Each item is photographed, documented, and ranked in order of importance. The intention is for this procedure to be carried out only once. This is why subsequent visits are crucial. A revisit indicates a significant alteration has occurred. Nancy's residence went through a series of steps, being initially handled, let go, and eventually looked into again. This scenario is uncommon and typically occurs due to a specific cause. It occurs when fresh data prompts investigators to rethink what they initially deemed insignificant. Information may not always immediately disclose its significance. Occasionally, Its importance only becomes apparent once other connections start to emerge. Investigators will revisit old locations when digital records, timestamps, and behavioral inconsistencies are linked. This prompts them to reassess and explore further by asking additional questions. The ongoing involvement of the FBI implied that the focus of the case had shifted from locating Nancy to uncovering the instigator behind the events. This change in focus was crucial, indicating that investigators suspected potential danger and a hidden motive driving the silence. The true meaning of the return. The return was peaceful and calm, devoid of any fanfare or attention. The investigators arrived quietly, without any grand entrance or public statements. Their decision to return without explanation hinted at a desire to safeguard something fragile. In such instances, silence serves as a form of protection rather than a lack of communication. The key point to note is that the return was not made in a flashy manner. There were no press conferences held, no emergency declarations made, and no abrupt change in attitude. The whole process unfolded quietly, indicating a deliberate and thoughtful approach by the investigators. This calm demeanor implies that they were not responding to a startling revelation, but rather verifying something that was already forming. One notable observation is what was absent from the scene. There were no signs of intense forensic work, no complete protective gear, and no urgency. This absence holds significance, as it suggests that the investigators were not dealing with a recent crime or unexpected discovery. Instead, they were investigating subtle details that only gain importance once a hypothesis starts to take shape. Return visits frequently involve confirming information. Researchers might recheck measurements. They might revisit the same routes. They might capture images of locations previously considered unremarkable. They might gather objects that were previously overlooked, but now seem to be significant in a developing trend. This is not a hurried activity. It is meticulous and deliberate. Proof doesn't always make a loud statement. At times it speaks softly. The location of an item, the way it was set up, the absence of something, all these specifics hold significance when observed in the correct sequence. The surrounding circumstances can be more significant than the objects in question. A house doesn't only contain objects, it also houses daily rituals. Evidence handling being carried out in a discrete manner suggests a crucial point. Investigators were in the process of perfecting a theory instead of hastily coming up with one. Rushing occurs when things are unclear, while perfecting occurs when there is a link between different pieces of evidence. This disparity is a game changer. Upon the individual's arrival, the residence was no longer the site of a disappearance, but began to play a more active role in the inquiry. It became a type of informant in its own right, with each aspect of the home offering valuable insights. Instead of immediately looking into ransom requests or public statements, investigators first analyze internal factors such as behavior, patterns, and digital footprints. In contemporary missing persons cases, digital activity can often provide more insights than traditional physical evidence. Investigators do not just retrieve phones or devices in a residence. They recreate sequences of events. They analyze when a phone was last accessed, if messages were viewed, if location tracking ceased abruptly or kept moving. Even periods of silence are significant. A device that remains silent at a critical time is seldom accidental. Internet routers play an equally crucial role, silently documenting interactions and noting the arrival and departure of devices on a network. Through timestamps, they expose any alterations that occur, such as sudden disconnections, the appearance of new devices, or unusual periods of inactivity when regular routines should have persisted. This information aids in pinpointing the timeline with remarkable accuracy. Smart home technology even when underestimated by occupants, has an impact on daily life. Devices like door sensors, thermostats, cameras, and voice assistants observe without passing judgment. They collect data over time, revealing patterns that can determine if a person left voluntarily, was disturbed, or did not use the usual exits. Digital evidence holds significant power, as it does not depend on recollection or explanation. It simply either exists or does not. Timestamps do not make assumptions and logs do not overlook details. This level of transparency frequently advances investigations in a discreet and swift manner. When dealing with cases of potential ransom or restricted communication, investigators exercise extra caution. They focus on identifying signs of premeditation. They assess any deviations from normal patterns that occurred prior to the person's disappearance, rather than afterwards. They scrutinize if devices were deliberately placed, if settings were tampered with, and if behavior indicates forethought, rather than simply reacting to a situation. Public updates may slow down or cease due to the ongoing verification of digital evidence. Sharing incomplete information can pose risks, as it may tip off observant individuals, weaken negotiation positions, or endanger missing persons. Therefore, maintaining silence can be a responsible approach in such situations. During the investigators' return, they discovered information that contributed to a broader understanding. This understanding was constructed gradually and methodically, with each small detail adding to the overall picture without drawing attention. But something was finally discovered in her home. What was that? Stay with us. When the silence became the loudest clue. A significant point in a thorough investigation is when the flow of new information starts to dwindle. This doesn't mean that nothing is going on, but rather that too many things are happening simultaneously. The constant updates cease, leaving behind a quiet atmosphere. This change in dynamics was particularly noticeable in the Nancy Guthrie case. Initially, details were coming in steadily. Then, the statements became more cautious. Eventually, they became few and far between. Finally, there was complete silence. This type of silence is commonly misinterpreted. It is not a sign of disregard or uncertainty, but rather a deliberate tactic. Investigators withdraw from disclosing information when they believe it could impede their progress. Each word spoken publicly poses a potential risk. Every aspect provided can be scrutinized, manipulated, or exploited by vigilant observers. Therefore, silence serves as a means of safeguarding their work. In situations where there is a threat of ransom or monitoring of communication, the need for caution becomes more urgent. Investigators are aware that acknowledging or contradicting specific information could be interpreted as a sign. It may inadvertently provide comfort to the wrong individual or indicate how much progress authorities have made in uncovering the truth. Even a slight assurance can be risky if it discloses too many details. One factor that can lead to silence is the presence of discrepancies found by investigators. These inconsistencies may not be significant, sometimes just small discrepancies that do not align with prior beliefs. It could be a slightly inaccurate timeline, behavior that deviates from expectations, or new information that raises more questions than it resolves. Once these discrepancies arise, organizations tend to limit their communication to focus on specific issues. As the investigation progresses, attention sharpens. Rather than communicating with the public, investigators turn their focus solely to the issue at hand. They carefully examine the evidence once more, comparing details discreetly and exploring theories without any interference. By minimizing communication, they are able to enhance their clarity of thought. The silence is also attributed to a compassionate motive. Families are usually kept in the dark about certain developments, not to harm them, but to protect them. Revealing information prematurely could lead to fear and confusion. It may also give rise to unwarranted optimism and pressure individuals into irreversible choices. Police officers have to navigate not only physical evidence, but also emotional considerations. Managing emotional energy is equally crucial as managing information. Errors tend to occur when emotions are heightened. Providing moments of silence allows individuals to pause and reflect, even in moments of intensity. The silence during these periods can be maddening for the general population. They crave information, comfort, and tangible signs of progress. Without communication, people's minds wander and rumors run wild. However, in terms of investigation, the decision to remain quiet typically indicates a significant discovery has been made. Silence is not often a casual choice, but tends to manifest when investigators sense they are nearing something delicate that requires caution. Premature disclosure could jeopardize the delicate path they are tracing. Nancy's situation was not characterized by a lack of information, but rather by the significance of what was left unsaid. This implied that the investigation had come to a critical juncture, where each action held importance and where it was considered safer to provide minimal information. The night that raised more questions than answers. One of the most anticipated events in this situation did not take place at Nancy Guthrie's residence. Instead, it took place discreetly at a relative's house. During the late hours of the night, law enforcement personnel were observed arriving at the location. They entered the house and remained there for several hours. Lights were visible through the windows, and deputies carried out their task with a sense of tranquility. As with numerous other occurrences in this case, there was no official explanation provided to the public. Scenarios like this may appear concerning to onlookers. Late-night visits can provoke apprehension and lead to hasty judgments. However, those working on the case have a unique perspective. Going to a relative's house does not always imply guilt or misconduct. In numerous investigations, it signifies a less dramatic yet crucial aspect: clarification. When authorities revisit a home during a case, it is typically due to fresh leads. These leads may arise from analyzing digital information, reviewing timelines, or uncovering evidence that only fits together when compared with other discoveries. These follow-up visits are not spontaneous or filled with strong emotions. They are premeditated, cautious, and aimed at ensuring precision rather than making accusations. The timing of visits is crucial. Late-night visits are not scheduled for surprise or concealment. Rather, they are scheduled based on the importance of time. When investigators require quick responses, they choose the time when individuals are accessible and when circumstances permit peaceful, uninterrupted work. The urgency is not to assign blame, but to ensure accuracy in every aspect. A key factor to consider is the personnel conducting these home visits. If the visits are carried out by local law enforcement, rather than specialized federal forensic teams, it typically indicates a more supportive or administrative intent. The visits may entail taking photographs, verifying the setup of the residence, re-examining previous statements, or gathering items previously identified and approved. These actions serve to bolster the case rather than intensify it. Investigators are meticulous when it comes to avoiding contamination. When it comes to forensic testing or biological analysis, the visit would have a distinct appearance. Specific equipment and protective gear would be present, along with clear indications of a crime scene being processed. The lack of these indicators is significant, indicating that the emphasis was on verifying and documenting rather than uncovering new information. Families often go back to their homes when time is limited, when every minute counts. It is important for investigators to establish the exact location and time of individuals. These visits are crucial in eliminating doubts, filling in missing information and transforming assumptions into proven truths. The contents of that secretive meeting, held late at night, may remain a mystery to the public. The specific details of what was captured on camera or clarified may never be revealed. However, the very occurrence of the visit conveys a subtle message. The direction of the investigation seems to have shifted from being broad and comprehensive to becoming more focused and specific. When investigators start honing in on a particular aspect, it indicates their confidence in their understanding of the situation surpasses what has been disclosed. At this point, the focus shifts to accuracy. The FBI is now delving into specific theories rather than general inquiries. Every bit of information collected is contributing to a singular objective. The main aim is to determine if Nancy's disappearance is an ongoing event or if critical choices were made well in advance of anyone recognizing that something was amiss. Investigators are constantly seeking to uncover evidence of life, but not necessarily for public display. They are more concerned with internal validation rather than external validation. This validation may not always be achieved through visual or audio evidence, but also through identifying patterns or digital behaviors. Communication patterns and changes over time also play a significant role in confirming the existence of life. The concept of timing is closely examined. The precise moments when messages are dispatched, when devices fall silent, and when regular patterns are disrupted. These instances serve as critical junctures. They expose underlying intentions. A message delivered either too soon or too late may undermine its intended meaning. Minor errors in timing can have a significant impact. Another area of emphasis is control. Investigators pay careful attention to who seems to be in charge of the situation. They assess whether messages are being generated in response to events or if they have been premeditated. They also evaluate whether demands are well-defined and organized, or if they come across as rushed and erratic. These specifics aid investigators in determining whether they are dealing with an individual with expertise in controlling a situation or someone attempting to mimic control. A subtle doubt lingers in the background. Is the disappearance really in line with the Ransom storyline? Not all situations involving ransom notes start off as abductions. Occasionally, the demand is made after the fact. It could be a decoy or a way to divert attention. Detectives meticulously sift through the evidence to distinguish between appearances and reality. As deadlines draw near, the level of caution rises. Each action is carefully considered, and each choice is evaluated for potential consequences. One small error could halt communication or escalate the situation. This is the reason for the slower pace of actions and the fading of explanations. What may appear as inactivity is actually deliberate movements being made cautiously. This stage is not about doing nothing, it's about confirming information. It involves subtly establishing a sense of assurance. When investigators are sure about the timeline, messaging, and power dynamics, they can move on to the next stage. The following stage is seldom characterized by noise. It rarely happens quickly. In most cases, it doesn't align with public expectations. When individuals are informed about ransom timelines, they tend to envision suspenseful conclusions, a transaction taking place, an apprehension, an abrupt declaration. In actuality, deadlines seldom bring closure. They signify a change. The aftermath of a deadline is often more significant for investigators than the actual request. Continuing communication past a deadline can indicate underlying intentions and motivations. It can indicate whether the time constraint was truly important or merely a tactic. It can indicate if the individual is open to compromise or willing to relinquish power. These interactions offer a deeper understanding that goes beyond mere requests. When communication ceases, the resulting absence of sound is carefully examined. Silence could indicate feelings of fear, assurance, or that the true narrative was not fully disclosed. Detectives analyze this quietness with regards to online activity, schedules, and previous actions. No detail is overlooked. A common misconception is that paying a ransom will bring an investigation to a halt, but in reality, it only serves to ignite new inquiries. Financial transactions are never truly invisible, as they always leave behind a digital footprint. Every action taken to gain from the situation also comes with its own set of dangers. The main objective of the FBI is not only to find a solution, but also to ensure responsibility. While recovering from the situation is important, knowing the reasons behind it, identifying the individuals involved, and preventing it from happening again are equally crucial. As the case progresses, the answers may not come all at once, but may emerge gradually. They may surface discreetly, either through legal documents or through confirmations long after the initial attention has waned. The outcomes might seem disconnected from the initial, uneventful stages of the case. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.